Welcome back to Old Guy REI. Today, Mikey and I are going to be going over the Zoom call highlights for January 15th. And I think it's pretty standard these days. All our meetings are really good. There's a lot of great input from all the investors that join us each week. And we see new people jump in every week, which is great. Um, one of the things that we started out with was just getting to know one of our friends that's in the Wisconsin market, and she had some good news. She had just closed on a deal, and but she was wondering how other people in the community are finding deals because in her market she's finding it a little bit tougher. Um, and a couple of the people in the group had thoughts on that, and one of our friends suggested maybe reaching out to property management companies in her area, because if they're managing a portfolio for someone and it's an older landlord maybe getting tired of doing it, that would be a good resource, and they might let them know, hey, I've got 3 or 4 units I want to get rid of, or something like that. And one of the other people mentioned maybe reaching out to um, he reached out to his CPA, and it's the same kind of thing, right? If a CPA has been doing taxes for someone that has a large portfolio or even a few properties and they're getting tired, it might be a good resource for them to find out about some upcoming properties. I thought those were really great tips. How about you?
Yeah, and that's what the REI Avengers they give great advice on is every time you network, just try to ask, hey, is there anyone else you think I should be able to talk to? You kind of heard my introduction and my buy box is, what I'm looking for. And even Matt had recommended those digital QR codes where you can have your buy box, your information, so people can just scan your card and they have your contact information immediately.
Yeah, great. Um, a lot of times people have questions about insurance, and it came up again this week about where we typically go first to get an insurance quote and things like that. And a few people in the group talked about brokerage, insurance brokers, and things like that. A couple that I've worked with in the past, the guy's name is Tyler Curley, and he's with Path Insurance Solutions. He's been a good resource for us, and actually one of the other investors in the group has worked with Tyler as well. And some other investors go straight to the NREIG platform to get quotes. Who did you end up going with? Did you go with a local agent or?
Yeah, we went with a local agent and they found the best rates with travelers. But actually, as I got more and more with travelers, then the third one was unexpectedly high. And that's when I kind of started scrambling. I shopped maybe six different brokerages, and then I found one with State Farm, and they were more in that price range I was expecting for the initial numbers. And the lender likes 1 million liability, the 10,000 medical, and the full replacement value. But on this one, maybe it was a mistake to do this, but I went 80.1% and it was okay with the lender.
Okay, that's a good point, because sometimes the lenders get involved if the coverage isn't right for what they expect, and they'll get involved in the process.
And it was strange because the coverage was maybe four times the amount of the loan, but I know it doesn't make sense because it's like for their calculations and their costs of the labor and the materials to fully rebuild.
Yeah, we've had some interesting conversations about insurance because we're in California, and we've had to go with what's called the California Fair Plan. And in doing so, I was just doing it so that we could still have insurance, because we didn't want our mortgage company to implement insurance, because they would just be basically covering themselves and the rates would be a lot higher than we're used to paying. But Zuber brought up a good point because the California Fair Plan is just fire insurance, and it's not going to it's not typically going to be full replacement coverage. And I asked him that question on one of his recent lives, and he said that it's causing people to have to do what they call insurance stacking. So you have to pay for the California Fair Plan. That's a must. But then you might need an additional policy to cover your home to full replacement value. So it's a little worrisome, but um, hopefully we won't be in California much longer. We'll
Yeah.
see. uh, from there, our friend Mark Simon with Nexa Mortgage came back on with us, and he had brought some information about his company and what they do. And there was a few things that I didn't know. They're licensed in 48 states, including Puerto Rico. He's they're the largest broker in the country, and that is a positive thing because it gives them a lot more resources to help with different kinds of loans. And I know you and I reached out to him because of the price points that we're buying at. Our loan amounts are lower, and not a lot of lenders go that low. But they also do multi-million-dollar loans. He said they do commercial, they do SBA loans, they even have some people that do hard money loans. And it was nice because, and you and I have talked about it before, about how we should get in contact with him to let him know our specific situation, and they can tailor a product to our needs. And that's one thing that he mentioned, that some lenders will work around situations that a lot of other lenders can't or won't. Um, I know you did a loan recently with them, right?
I've done two with him, and he's really understanding about shopping the rates. And I tell him, I joke with him, one day I'm gonna beat his rate, but I've never been able to. And I have to thank you because it was your realtor, your connections that introduced me to him. And from that point, it was great because it was really hard to find loans of that smaller size.
Yeah, and you were reminding me that he talked a little bit about loans based on crypto.
Yeah, they had a licensed lender that works with crypto. It's expected payback within 12 months, possible extension at a rate of 12%. So it was kind of interesting hearing the details of it, but we have no experience in this. Not legal advice, but or financial advice, but just good to hear the different options.
Yeah, it is good, and you remind me that there's so much out there that we still don't know about this whole real estate investing business. And these meetings, they bring up good points like this every week, and just being out there in the community with all these other investors is making a positive impact. I know for Cynthia and I, because we've learned so much, and I've said before that it's helped us in our financial future as well, just learning about finances and learning about different things that are possible, better ways to use your money, like you and I spoke about earlier. Um, and some people were saying, that they're looking at seller financing deals because that seems to be the way things are going with interest rates, how high they are, and things like that. But one of our friends had cautioned us and said not to be sucked into a deal because there's seller financing involved, because that doesn't really say anything about the terms, right? And he had done a seller financing deal. Well, he's doing one right now, but he only got a 2-year term, which is pretty short time span to need to refinance or figure something out at the end of that term. He also mentioned that he's buying this commercial property, and they did an inspection, but wasn't super detailed. And now that he's got the building, he's finding more repairs that need to be done than he calculated in the beginning. Have you looked into seller financing? What are your thoughts on that?
I asked on the second one, or no, the third one, and a flat no.
Mm.
So
The seller
I
said no.
tried. Yeah, I tried, but I'll keep on trying, keep on asking every time just to see.
Yeah, and I think the biggest challenge with that, a lot of our friends have said, is if the seller is not familiar with seller financing, it's kind of scary to them. So they will say no right away, right off the bat, and won't even give it a second thought. Um,
And we've heard other people recommend propwire.com as a good resource just to understand the equity position. And that's what I've been using on the site. It's free, so I'm able to type in the address and it shows how much leverage they have in the property.
yeah, and that would make it um, a better option for someone who has, say, 70 or 80% equity in their home. That makes sense. That same investor that was in the middle of the seller finance deal, he bought a, he's opening a franchise and it's canine resorts. I thought that was interesting. He's super excited about that prospect, but he knows it is going to take some of his time in the beginning before he gets, you know, say a manager to run the business or whatever it might be, employees and things like that. So he's going to have to put a little bit of time in the beginning, but once it's up and running, he saw a lot of upside for that business. We jumped over to one of the investors in our group came in a couple of weeks ago and he was looking for solutions because his units have tankless water heaters and he had just replaced one and was surprised at how the life expectancy was like 10 to 15 years, but he was replacing them at 7 or 8 years and was looking for ways to lengthen their lifespan. And some of the people in the group had come up with thoughts of adding filtration systems so that the water's cleaner going through the water heater, water softeners, and things like that. But once he ran the scenario through, he decided just to keep replacing the water heaters as they failed because it was starting to cost a lot of money to implement those other systems. And that was pretty cool, I thought, because you don't know until you run it and see what the cost might be, and then you can make a better decision on what the best option is for you moving forward. I know his family's had those properties for quite some time, but they do keep them nice, and that can get expensive sometimes.
I like the meeting so much because it's the due diligence that one investor will do. They'll spend the time researching this, kind of going over all the numbers, then just reporting back to us. So it saves us time, and we just try to share each other's own market research and what we're finding to help save others time too.
Yeah, that's a great point, and you remind me that that's why we started this channel in the beginning, right? Because I know we made a ton of mistakes and we learned a ton of lessons just getting started the second time around. And by sharing that, it's grown into this group. We've been meeting now for over a year every week, and people sharing their experiences um, is saving money and time for a lot of the other investors. So I really appreciate it too. That same investor has a vacant unit right now, and he was talking that he's going to be trying to fill it with a Section 8 tenant because in his market, the average rents are 2,800 a month, and Section 8 will go up to 3,800 a month. It's a $1,000 delta. And you and I have spoken before about just because Section 8 says they'll pay 3,800 doesn't mean you would get it. They still run comps on rents in the area. And for example, if they're finding that the average is 3,200, for example, they're not going to go to 38. But he was saying even if he got 32, it's 400 more than he could get with a regular tenant. And that was a big win in his case.
And I've asked you a lot of questions about FMR, and you have said when the FMR is shown, it's also including the utilities. So you would have to factor that in. And I learned from Dion, he had just mentioned this where every October the FMR is released for the following year. And I'm still trying to understand, it's like once those are released, you kind of have to wait a bit of time into the following year to actually have those changes take place. So it's great asking you because you've had some experience with the Section 8.
Yeah, I think what the guys were saying, so the new numbers come out in October, but they wouldn't take effect until January. And what you were saying about the utilities being part of their of the rents that they list, that's true. And I would think a lot of cases in our experience, for example, we had a tenant paying 1150, the FMR, and we haven't said that, but the FMR is the government fair market rents. So you can go to HUD.FMR to find those listed in that on that website for 2025. But our tenant was paying 1150 and she took care of the utilities outside of that amount. And so I guess it just depends. Again, it's market dependent. Now, they used to break it down. For example, in St. Louis, the fair market rents covered St. Louis County. But this year, and I've heard other investors say it too, instead of just the county, they're breaking it down by zip code. And oddly enough, some zip codes went down for 2025, but the majority still went up. So, you know, um, one of the other investors had asked if FMRs were accurate and should you use them when you're analyzing a deal. And the consensus was no, because for the reasons we just said. So a lot of us will start maybe with the fair market rents number. We'll check things like Rentometer, Zillow. You can go on Zillow and see what's for rent now in your zip code, and that'll give you a good idea. You can see how long they've been on the market for rent, or how quickly they're renting, and or not renting. And then we also will check in with our property manager to see what they might rent a 2 or 3 bedroom for. Some of our friends cautioned us to be careful with that one because they think some property managers might set the rents a little bit low just so they can get the unit filled and the property manager can start collecting their fee. So you have to take that with a grain of salt.
And it's interesting, I was playing around with Pittsburgh. They have the breakdown of all the utilities in detail, what it will cover. And they also have its own interactive map. You can check the different counties. So and a ton of reading material too about all the different rules and statistics. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences from town to town or county to county. So, you know, I think it's hard to learn all of that up front, but if you do invest in a place, you will start learning because, like, for example, in St. Louis, we have the occupancy inspections that you have to get done before you can rent a property. In St. Joseph, Missouri, they do them every couple of years, and you do need like a rental permit there. It's like $25 or $35 a year. So there's different things in different markets that you have to watch out for. Some folks had asked, how do you find a good PM? One of the people on the call that night had suggested to join like local Facebook groups, or even local real estate investor groups in your market, and you can usually ask around if you're in there for a little while, and ask questions and participate for a while. You can get some good information. How did
Yeah,
you find your property manager again?
it was through Mark Oshiro, financial firefighter, and I hopped on his coattails, his teams, and yeah, I'm grateful for his resources because it's helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's another good point. Over the last few weeks, people have been thinking they want to go start investing out of state because they're not finding deals in their local markets and stuff. And, usually the first tip is to find someone in a market that you're interested in that's doing it already because like for example you and we have our property managers, we can give feedback on how we like it or how we don't like it. We can talk about and share contractors that we're working with. My property manager is okay with us using outside vendors out of their system, and he was impressed with the plumber that we were using, so he asked for the plumber's information. So, it works back and forth, um, and it's good. With our property manager, he's okay with using our own people, but one thing he said was, like, if we're hiring someone to do a roof, for example, the property manager won't go check on the roofer. They won't check the work. It's all on us if we hire somebody outside of his network. So, and that's understandable. They do, that property manager charges 12% on top. So if, for example, our roof cost $4,000, so it would have been another $400 to $500 if the property manager had managed that project.
And just by you introducing that plumber to your property management, that your property manager is going to remember that. And it's just you adding value back and forth with each other, and it's going to strengthen the relationship.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier, and there was a lot of good information shared. So we'll have to do a separate video on that because it is a little bit longer than we typically spend on these. Um, one of the other investors was asking what everybody typically pays for property management. And in our case, it ranges from 8% to 10%. What are you paying these days?
I'm at 9.
Okay.
I started at 10 and then was changed over to 9.
Okay, that's good. But you have 3 units with the same PM.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was surprised that our Illinois property manager is the one that charges the least. And we only have 1 unit with her. Hopefully, once we pick up a couple more in St. Louis, that we might be able to negotiate a little bit better rate.
At what unit count would you start considering that negotiating?
Yeah, we have 3 right now. I would think once we get to 5, maybe. Yeah, when we get to 5, or maybe go a little bit over that. But you can always ask. Maybe I should ask now because maybe it's 4 units, and you never know. But
Yes, like
that's a good
this is my
question.
introductory fee for bringing contractors to you. Lower my
Yeah, yeah, and we've talked about kind of growing a good network there in St. Louis. We worked through our agent. She gave us some really good referrals for a general contractor. We got the plumber from her. We got the roofer from her. Um, we haven't really gotten anything from the property manager yet, but we even got a used appliance store that we've purchased appliances through that our agent worked with. So I'm really grateful for that. We we got into a discussion about flooring. Some of the people in the group had recently purchased flooring, and we mostly talked about LVP because that's pretty much the standard these days. Laminate flooring is still a really good product, but LVP is so waterproof and it's fairly scratch resistant. It'll hold up good to kids and pets. Um, One of our friends mentioned Floret, a product that he uses. I talked about the LifeProof product from Home Depot. I'm really happy with that one, and we typically try to steer our customers to that product. They have a wide variety of patterns and colors, so it's not, and it doesn't really look fake anymore. It used to just look fake and you could tell what it was, but now they've done a much better job about colors and patterns, so it's nice.
and the mills, what do you like?
Yeah, I know the one investor was saying the Floret product is like a 40 mil product, and that's the wear thickness. So the whole product just say it's about a quarter of an inch thick, and then there's the pattern part. So that part in on the flooring that we use is 22 mil, and they have, I think it's a 15-year limited commercial type warranty, but on this product he said it was a 25-year warranty, and it's a commercial warranty. So and he has commercial properties, so that's what he really enjoys using that product, and it's held up well for him.
And it was an interesting discussion because his market was maybe B in the B area range. Then there was another investor saying, well, I'm more C, C plus. So maybe looking at that material wouldn't match my investing. That was a good talk.
Yeah, because they said they were talking about the difference in price. So the life proof stuff with tax, it's around $3 a foot, and the floret stuff was 450, maybe a little bit higher than 450 a foot. So yeah, so in a C class property, you might not want to spend that much money on the flooring. Um, and two, tenants can pretty much ruin anything. So if you end up spending the higher amount, they can still mess up the floor if they're, melting it or something like that. It can still get scratched, but I think when we put it in our customers' homes, we still advise them to put pads under furniture feet and things like that. And but even with that, if something like a little pebble gets stuck under the protective cup, that'll still scratch your floor. But on light scratches and stuff, we talk too about using like a Scotch pad, the green Scotch pads, and you can kind of sometimes rub light scratches out of the LVP if it's not too deep.
Yeah, that was a good talk too about the flooring level and how the curves and the waves and what you do to remedy that.
Yeah, you still need to make sure. So the our friend that was going to be removing carpet and stuff, carpet padding and tack strip, and then installing the LVP, we just mentioned to him that I think he got a price from Home Depot and it was like 225 or 250 a square foot. And I just wanted to remind him that that was their base price, right? That's if they come in and that the room is ready for flooring. But then they're going to add a cost for removing the carpet, the pad, and the tack strip. If it needs leveling, they're going to add for that. And there are certain tolerances, like if the floor has waves or anything in it, if the plywood's warped at all, you want to be careful with that because that would prohibit the joints from staying locked together well, and they might start to open up over time. And once that starts happening, then you just lost it. But the leveling compound, and they were joking about that, how much it's gone up in price over the years. But everything has gone up, almost double across the board. So I just, so if he's thinking 250 a foot for labor and the product is three, that's 550 a square foot. So if the room, say it's 100 square feet, that's $550. But then when you add the carpet removal and haul away, and also two baseboards, because they're going to need, most of the time they would need to install new baseboards. So that's a cost. And do the baseboards need to be painted? And so it's not just 550 a foot anymore. It turns out to be, close to why I charge is about $8 a foot for something like that. So, he might end up paying that.
In that instance, would you work directly with Home Depot or would you just get the materials from Home Depot then get an outside contractor to install?
Yeah, I've had really good luck with Home Depot installing carpet, but anything else, tile, laminate, hardwood, I would not do it through Home Depot.
Good info, thank you.
Yeah. What else did we chat about? Did I miss anything?
The That was interesting, just kind of going around the week, how Dion was talking about the insurance spikes nationwide. So kind of be prepared for that. I also like that he was saying he had that discussion where if you don't hold to your lease, the court could come back and say the lease is sever liability. I thought that was a good point. and he likes those Arlo motion sensor lights. And it was great seeing you do the portfolio update. It's almost like a one-on-one. That's what it kind of looks like. Because I've been through the one-on-one, and I just was curious on your thoughts, how you thought it went. And
Yeah, well, like you and I spoke about, I love getting on with him anytime we can because we always learn so much. And I did learn a ton because in preparation for that, I I researched all our properties um, from the date we closed on them, and so we have 7 properties now. We started buying in August of 2021. Uh, we have 10 doors across those 7 properties. I was able to recall things like, what we paid for the properties. I actually looked up how much we still owe on the loans. I was able to work up um, our cash on cash returns, the cost of our mortgages, our total cash in, and things like that. So it was really useful for me to to do that. And I think I'm glad Dion is not like if we're doing something like stupid, he'll tell us. And I really appreciate that. And that's the most valuable thing, across the board because you don't want somebody, like we talk about agents, right? And they'll just do it to sell you the property and tell you everything's great. The rates will come down next year and you can refinance and different things like that. They sugarcoat things and Dion and the guys, they don't do that. And that's why we've been able to progress the way we have, even though we still make mistakes, but I think we know a lot better this time around. Like I told him, the first time we tried to do it, YouTube wasn't around. We didn't have a ton of investor friends, at the time. But now with everybody in this group and doing it, moving in the same direction, it's helped us do a lot better despite those mistakes that we've made. It's helped us do a lot better this time around.
yeah, that resonates with me because when you talk about the lender saying, don't worry, the rates will come down next year. I had that experience on the first one. I never work with that lender again. And if you hear that, run
Yeah.
for the hills because that is the worst advice ever.
Yeah, that's it was a good experience and they always are, but and these calls that we do, our meetings every week, we're still learning a ton. I still consider myself to be a rookie investor. I know some people say that we're not, but in comparison to a lot of the people in the group, yeah, we're still newbies. And it's great that everybody's willing to share their experiences and they're not afraid to say when they made a mistake, right? And that's how we're learning. So it's been an awesome experience.
Same here. And I just, and I did want to talk about, there was that conversation that Zuber had talking about the 8 to 9 units. And once they've seen investors get to that mark, instead of just going for doubles, they'll try to go for a home run. And that's when Zuber will see maybe things get more complicated and more, it'll just kind of blow up. And I just was curious, what are your thoughts? And
Yeah, I think how I've had a similar thought now that we have the units that we have, although we're still in stabilization mode. But the way I look at it is I don't necessarily need to look for a home run, but the next property that we buy is going to be scrutinized way more than the ones we have. I thought we were doing that to this point, but realizing that there were things we still could have done better. Like you and I talked before, and Matt had the suggestion about when we're doing inspections to actually have a real electrician inspect the electrical, a real plumber check out the plumbing. Um, One thing that we've talked about recently is the sewer scopes, right? Because when you get a sewer scope done, they check the sewer lateral from the house to the street. but nobody ever checks. Our properties have basements, so you'll see that plumbing stack in the basement, and there's a clean out there. So they could actually go in that clean out and check the plumbing that's under the basement floor too. We've had issues, and we just paid $4,000 for one of those issues because the sewer scope came back clean and the damage was inside under the basement floor. So when you get a sewer scope now, I want to find a plumber that will go from the basement to the street. And learning stuff like that is going to help us, do better deals in the future. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Doubles all the way, slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll look forward to doing this with you again next week. And it's almost that time for the event in February. What are you, only 25 or 26 days away? The year was going so slow, and now it's going pretty fast, though.
Yeah, it'll come by in no time, and looking forward to meeting everyone.
Yeah. So thank you again, and we'll look forward to chatting with you next week.
Yep, thanks. And please follow, like, and subscribe, and also comment.
Please.
Yeah, thank you.